Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host G1. As always, I hope you're having a good week. Slow one, thankfully for me. We had the eclipse and it went smoothly, as in no craziness, no more earthquakes or riots or power outages or anything like that. So that's good. That's good. No climate change caused earthquakes either, as we learned from some very intelligent reporter this week that earthquakes can be caused by climate change. And we know that's the most important thing, right? Anyway, I was considering topics for this week's episode, and I didn't really have a single thing, single main item to kind of talk about that really warranted a full show. So I figured I would kind of squish a few little shorter topics together and hit on them kind of briefly, which is something I do occasionally and haven't. It's been a little while since I've done that, but anyway. And one of them is actually a little bit more important than the others, so we'll cover that one as the final topic for today. Okay, let's kick it off with a kicking of the bucket. The juice has finally expired. Yes, OJ Simpson is dead at the age of 76 from cancer, apparently. There is a lot that can be said about OJ that is negative and probably in poor taste, I guess. So I won't go into all of that. I believe he was a murderer. I don't think there's any real doubt about that. I don't think anybody with any kind of level of intelligence can not see it that way. I believe that people who believe he was framed or that he was innocent are deluding themselves to remain in their comfortable narrative. I spoke of his trial a number of episodes back, the civil trial. I was mentioning that civil case against him, that I did not think that was a rightful way of going about things, because I believe that it has led to the kind of lawfare that we are seeing today. And I went into that in that episode. If you want to hear that, go back and kind of find that. I can't recall exactly which episode that was, but it wasn't that long ago. This time, though, I want to talk a little bit about his criminal trial, really more about the events surrounding that. I am a Gen Xer, as I've mentioned in the past, so this all kind of took place after I had graduated high school. It has been said that Gen X was the first generation that was raised, I guess, in the post-racial United States. I've heard it said many different ways there, but in other words, we were drilled in school with the most racial equality and racial conscious focused system that had ever been in the U.S. schools up to that time. It was the first iteration of this fully captured school system that's fully taken over by the progressive communists. And going through that initial saturation of programming that would eventually grow into today's ultra-woke, feminist, and radical ideology. But back then it was just getting going, and so it was still in its infancy. And this was kind of a critical moment, because I think this moment was something that for a large number of us, at least for those of us who were raised in the South, this kind of tore down more of that brainwashing than anything else that we had seen to that point. We had gone through school, we had been told about all these things. We had said, forget racial identity. We're all equal. All of these, all these good things that we're taught, right? That's what we were getting, a full daily dose of that stuff. Now, I recall the Rodney King riots and how people from my generation thought that it was terrible and that the cops were way over the line. They should have been punished more harshly and so forth. But we also thought that the riots were too far. I recall having conversations that were kind of along the lines of, I get that people are pissed off about this, but why are they burning down liquor stores and gas stations? This is crazy. This is the kind of stuff we were already talking about. So when this criminal trial of OJ Simpson comes along and the verdict is read live on TV while the whole country is watching, I remember it being in the afternoon. Well, it was an eye-opener. I remember seeing crowds of black people cheering and yelling in victory because OJ had gotten away with murder. It was a lesson that didn't go unnoticed by me and people in my circles, at least. The lesson is it doesn't matter how much you agree with people. If they feel like they have a grief against you, no matter what, they will side with their own people. You can never be enough on their side because you are not them. Justice is not real in this environment, and it's not about making things right for the families of the victims. It's about appeasing a mob of people who will burn and loot and destroy if they do not agree with the outcome. That's the lesson that we were taught. Really did a lot to strip away things that we had been taught in school. And this hasn't changed in the last 30 years. In fact, it's gotten worse, as you all are aware. The OJ trial happened in 1995, so adding to the events really from 91 forward, it was a time of significant change in the country. Really, the slide into darkness kind of reached its real visible stage during this time. It'd been happening for a while. I say that it began in 63, but this stretch of time from 91 to maybe 96 or so was when it really gained steam and it really became a thing. Ruby Ridge, Waco, the first World Trade Center bombing, TWA 800, Oklahoma City, Rodney King, OJ, all of these things happening in that little short period of time there. And they tore the mask off of what we thought the world was. Very interesting times. That's where we were. Imagine where we'll be. Now, moving on now to this picture that was released by the U.S. Navy Public Affairs Office. This is some ship captain who's out on the deck of his vessel, and he's doing some target practice with an AR pattern rifle. I don't know exactly what model the Navy has issued. It's not really relevant. Well, this photo in light speed immediately gets roasted on social media because it's filled with a host of glaringly goofy stuff. Mostly related to the gun, but there were a ton of comments on his shooting stance and other things. So I don't want to get pedantic on this and go into every little thing. There's plenty of videos out there for you to watch that, or go read the social media yourself. I'm sure that there are photos out there of a lot of shooters doing silly stuff or having something wrong on their rifle. I mean, hell, I once had a massive Chinesium scope mounted on my SKS when I was a snot-nosed kid because I didn't have any other rifle to mount it to. It was ridiculous. It was just the stupidest thing in the world. So I can be mindful of that. We've all done dumb things at a time. But there's a problem with that. This is a professional. This whole thing from top to bottom is supposed to be professionals. This is the function of a public affairs office. You are supposed to know that you can't release something that looks stupid or embarrassing. Perhaps you should grab someone who's, I don't know, a subject matter expert maybe, to go over photos and make sure there's nothing stupid in them. No uniform mistakes, no equipment mistakes. Everyone's wearing their safety belts and their vaccines are all up to date. And yes, those last two are jokes. Don't hit me in the comments. The point is that it's your job as PAO to make sure that your service looks good. If you don't know what is good, maybe you're not up to that task. Step one is perhaps photoshopping that optic back pointed in the right direction. I don't know. I digress. How much do we want to wager that this is another example of DEI at work? Maybe in the PAO office. I don't know. This officer looks like he's not picked up a firearm since he was a kid, and has likely been chastised for even thinking about guns while he's been educated. Now he's out in command of a $1 million weapons system and a number of lives. And that's a position of achievement, by the way, and it's commendable. Hats off to him for that. But perhaps we are failing our leadership in the military, and by extension, they are failing their troops when we place emphasis on certain areas of education and training that are only relevant in the confines and isolated world of academia, and have no real place out in the real world. Our enemies are laughing at us, and our ancestors are very disappointed. Now, the last thing this week, and this is, like I said, more important than these others, James O'Keefe has racked up an already impressive array of scoops, but this week he has hit us with two back-to-back videos that reflect, well, really the level of rot within our federal bureaucracy. This week, OMG, that's O'Keefe Media Group, released two videos, one showing interactions with a man who is a contract officer for the CIA, and also I believe he was an employee of the FBI in the past. And the second video is from a man who is a high-level, I believe, a senior economist at the Federal Reserve, which, as we know, is neither federal nor is it reserved. But let's look at these a little deeper. The CIA contract officer, which, by the way, means he deals with and handles contracts for the CIA, not that he is a contractor himself. He is a full-time employee. He goes into a long monologue on how the FBI and the CIA can basically set up anyone and have them thrown in jail if they want to. He reveals that this is what has happened with some of the J6 people, and that they were involved in encouraging the Sandy Hook parents to file a civil lawsuit against Alex Jones. He says that the CIA and the FBI wanted to get Alex Jones, and so they made it very clear to these parents that they felt there was a significant case against him. Now, he does not say that the FBI assisted in that case, but you got to ask the question, and you know that Alex Jones is going to be going back to court on this, because if they were providing assistance and perhaps information, it becomes very relevant to the case. The case itself revolved around the harassment of the families. It was a very critical element that these families were receiving online harassment and in-person harassment because of the things that Alex Jones had said. And they used that to justify the damages against them. Now, knowing the tactics of the FBI and the CIA, which this officer admits to in these videos when he talks about nudging people to act, it really bears the question, did the FBI and the CIA think the case was so good because they were the source of that harassment? The government creating the harassment and then assisting the victims in going after the target because of that harassment? One has to think that that's a significant question, and this video opens up for lawyers, for Jones to go back and file motions, demand disclosure from the FBI and the CIA, all documents and emails and communications revolving around this case. They need to come clean about that. FOIA requests if necessary. And the second video of this Federal Reserve economist, again, he's talking at dinner, as the first video was. He's talking at dinner with an undercover reporter. And you would think, these videos, they're typically these people going on dates with someone. And you would think that people in these kind of positions going on dates with strangers would, I don't know, keep their mouth shut about some of this stuff. But at any rate, he's talking to an undercover reporter, and it's related to how the Federal Reserve views President Trump and how the Federal Reserve has been forced internally to move its focus more on DEI and social justice and inequality because of these insiders within the Fed, including Jerome Powell, who was over the Fed under Trump. This guy says that Powell, quote, held the line, end quote, against Trump. He goes on to say that Powell raised interest rates when Trump wanted to lower them, that Powell wanted to stimulate the economy, but he didn't do it because it would have helped Trump while he was in office, and he didn't like Trump. Now, this is criminal behavior in my mind. It's dereliction of duty, it's insubordination, at least in the case of the FBI and the CIA. And of course, no one will want to discuss that part of it about the Fed, because like I said, the Fed is not Fed. They don't answer to the president. So technically, that's not really insubordination. But nobody wants to discuss that because then they might have to get into the discussion about why a private central bank is in charge of our monetary system and charges us interest beyond cosmic levels of usury. No. Just move on. Nothing to see here. Here, watch this trans swimmer over here. Doesn't that make you angry? Grrr. You should be angry and more upset about that. Grrr. As I said, the last two items perhaps get lost in all of the OJ coverage or the other nonsense that's been going on this week that really doesn't matter. No one in the mainstream is going to talk about those videos that OMG puts out because they've already dismissed James O'Keefe and they said he's a liar and he's dishonest. But the videos speak for themselves. So there's no lying involved there. It's possible, I guess, that O'Keefe might edit things down to present the information in a certain light, but they've also been rather consistent in releasing the entire video for analysis when these very controversial revelations happen. It's also possible that these videos are just two guys posturing or trying to be impressive. As I said, they're on dates, I guess. Maybe they really don't know a whole lot about the goings-on inside of their respective government operations, and they're just posturing. Who knows? But the problem with that is that it recalls what I tell you all the time. Don't believe what we read and see unless it's consistent with things that we already know to be true. Well, these things are very consistent with things that we already know to be true. Now, that's all I have time for this week, guys. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the Mothership. And I will see you on the next episode.